What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Rankings. I am your host, Zareh Kantzabedian. I am joined by Matt Olson, co-owner of 32BeatWriters. Matt, last time you and I were here together, we introduced the world to LeJohntay Wester, and he proceeded to break out in his first preseason game. My boy, dude, that was a good show. How you doing today, man?
Dude, doing great. Happy to be on with you again. Yeah. It's been a fun little offseason so far, Dude, it's funny. Like, we were watching that game, me and my wife, and LeJohntay broke one, and I was like jumping on the couch, and she's like, please sit down. Like, what are you doing? I was like, Laura, you don't understand. I was like, we just called this. It happened. Z's a genius. It's amazing. And she was like, I don't know what any of that means, but she's like, I'm happy for you guys.
Dude, that was big. I was at work and I got the call, or I got a text, I think, in our Discord, and somebody was like, dude, you must be out of your chair. And I had no idea what was happening. Also, he caught two passes, one big gainer for like 30 yards and another one for like 12 yards, which was awesome.
So yeah, my dog is also very excited about that.
I mean, yeah, we should. Yeah.
He heard LeJohntay and he just started apparently cheering like he was there with us.
All right.
But
yeah,
man, this is awesome.
Yeah, and we got some more breakout candidates, some deep sleeper candidates. We're gonna bring you guys today. Maybe not so deep as LeJohntay Wester. We're gonna do one from each position. Questions. I mean, players that you guys, that the consensus and the general public might be aware about, but not exactly sure what to make of them. So we're just gonna go ahead and dive in, one from each position. Our first guy up today is Woody Marks. Where are is Woody Marks, running back for the Houston Texans, right? So this guy was drafted in the 4th round by the Houston Texans in the NFL draft. Known for his pass catching ability. That's what he's really praised for coming out of college. But it's because he primarily played in a Mike Leach offense, which focuses on pass catching running back. I mean, those offenses, Mike Leach, have been notorious for feeding the ball to running backs. I mean, Woody Marks, he accumulated 1,058 receiving yards on 191 receptions in 3 years, I believe, playing under Mike Leach. Other recent running backs are Dylan Johnson out of Washington and Max Borghi, wherever Max Borghi was, I forgot. But I mean, those guys were UDFAs. This is the first time a Mike Leach running back has earned any draft capital in quite some time, and it's really exciting to watch Woody Marks. And yeah, there hasn't been much news coming out of training camp, and it's kind of something I wanted to ask you, Matt. I mean,
sure.
A player who doesn't read, is it necessarily good or a bad thing if a player isn't getting news out of training camp?
No, I mean, there's a big part of this too, right? Like, we talked to Aaron Wilson recently, and it was all about, mixing, right? And I think when you look at a Woody Marks scenario, the team obviously has him at practice every day and whatnot, and you're playing and whatever. But until recently, we were kind of all like, oh, Mixon will be back. Mixon will be back. And now it's starting to look like Mixon might not be back. So, we kind of just expected Mixon to fill that receiving role in this offense for the most part. We knew Chubb's not going to be that guy, right? And I think this is where it gets interesting, is that you have Chubb starting essentially now, and probably at least week 1 of the season, if not longer, right? And, Chubb isn't Chubb of old. We've seen Dameon Pierce actually put together 2 decent days back-to-back now. But again, good rookie year, kind of hasn't done anything since. And then the Texans go out and they target a guy like Woody Marks, and he seems like the perfect fit for no Joe Mixon, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of my thought is... and it's because I don't think he was getting running camp. Let me rephrase this. For a guy like Woody Marks, there's not going to just be like, oh, okay, Woody Marks, there's one play that we're going to run a pass to the running back. Get in here, and that's just not how coaching sessions work in camp. And I think that's why the name isn't coming up as often. He's still doing what he's good at. He's catching passes. He's getting a couple runs here and there. I think you probably have it on their sheet somewhere, but I think he didn't have a great rushing preseason debut. Is that sound correct?
Yeah, it's versus the Vikings. He had 3 rush attempts for 4 yards. The first one went for 5 yards. And the next two were 0 yards and -1 yard. And if you watch the film, it was because he had a porous offensive line that was just getting turnstiled at the line. So there isn't really much he can do. He did have a very strong preseason game, though, I think. And this is something that a lot of people overlook because they look at the rushing line. They look at the numbers put up, right? They want to see big numbers. And if they don't see that, then I think a lot of fantasy managers will say, well, forget this guy, maybe I should just drop him for, some random other guy sitting on waiver wires right now. But don't do that because he had a very strong game. And I think he made a very strong statement for himself as far as earning trust from the coaches. And that's because he excelled in pass protection and special teams plays. He had the most pass protection snaps of any running back in the first week of preseason, and he got a grade of 81.6, which is one of the highest grades any running back could have gotten. He was left on an island against linebacker Brian Asamoah for the Vikings, who actually now got cut, maybe because of how he couldn't get past Woody Marks. And the Titans already picked up Asamoah really quickly, actually. But he was left on an island versus Asamoah. Various times, 4 times. He picked him up every single time. There was one time where Asamoah tried to run like a stunt or like a twist to the other side of the line, and Woody Marks moved from one side to the other, navigated traffic, picked up Asamoah. There was another time where Marks was releasing hot out to the flat, recognized the nickel blitz, stepped in, chipped a nickel on he took away the inside shoulder of the nickel, which is where you want to aim for when you're going for like chip blocks, and allowed who's the quarterback? I forgot the quarterback's name. Allowed the quarterback to make the pass. Anyways, had a strong pass protection session, strong pass protection game. Also on a kick return, helped chip a rusher. On punt return, he fought off a 6', 240-pound linebacker and got downfield and made the tackle on the punt returner, right? And these are all huge. And we talked about this same kind of theme with LeJounte Wester being a 7th round pick, late round pick, right? This is where you got to make your hay. This is where you got to pay your dues. If you're not a premier 1st, 2nd round pick as a running back, you're not going to get premium touches. You're not going to get immediately put in with the starters at training camp. You got to earn your way onto the team. And this is how he does it. And pass protection is huge. The coaches are going to look at the film and they're going to be like, all right, man, we saw that was tough running for you. We saw that the line was leaky. We're not going to hold that. You did what you could. But as far as pass protection goes, in every single asset of the game and facet of the game, he was awesome. I mean, Mike McDaniels just said this week, Mike McDaniels, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, said this week regarding Ollie Gordon, we need to see rookie running backs do something when the ball's not in their hands, right? So that is you have to think about this kind of stuff as fantasy managers. You just can't think about targets and rush attempts. You have to look at the game holistically. So I think Woody Marks now, and you can talk about the reports coming about Joe Mixon, right? Coming out today, blowing up Twitter, X. It's looking pretty clear for Woody to get in to have a path to touches this year.
No, for sure. I mean, we kind of went backwards on this, and we're talking about, how he kind of fits into this backfield. And, I think I was reading through prior to the show, and I love your just straight up honesty of Mixon and Chubb are held together by duct tape and glue at this point. And I'm like, he's not wrong. And Aaron Wilson agreed when we talked to him. And I think, in a lot of fantasy minds, like, we're not, to your point, we're talking what's good for my fantasy team. Nick Chubb is still a household name. And if you're not 100% dialed in and all you're reading about is, oh, Nick Chubb's running with the ones, he's running with the ones. A lot of the times we, as fantasy managers, lean like, oh, well, this guy's the one. And to your point, there's tons of situations on the field that these other players are privy to based off of their skill set. So it is really interesting to see, where this evolves to, how he gets him. I think the only guy I could see, and I'm curious if you agree or disagree, that can maybe kind of give him a push is maybe Zareh, but I don't even know if he's on the team if Woody Marks starts to show out. You know what I mean? I feel like they kind of play that same role, or would, if the season started today?
I don't really know the value that Zareh brings to the team. I think the only significant competition outside of Chubb is Dameon Pierce, who had a strong rookie season and just kind of fell off. He's been kind of forgotten by the wayside, and I'm not really concerned about him right now. Dare Gubawale, I think he's a special teams guy. I think he's a reliable guy in pass protection, reliable third down back. And if times get desperate, I think a few years ago, 2 years ago, the team turned to him in like a desperate situation where it was between him and I believe at end of career Rex Burkhead, I believe, were the two primary options at running back. So that's the only time we saw Dare Agumbawale be relevant, when it was him or Rex Burkhead. I think that entire running back room was decimated that year. Woody Marks this year, he's got a ADP pretty late. I think he's in the 16th, 17th round turn. So his opportunity cost, any risk is mitigated. And the one thing I will say about Nick Chubb, what he did well over the years, since 2019 at least, every year since 2019, before his major injury in 2023, 20% of his fantasy points were accumulated on breakaway runs that went 15 yards or more, right? 20%, that's nearly a quarter of your fantasy value. That's nearly a quarter of your relevance, right? Of what makes you a great running back. And leave it to I'm not going to doubt Nick Chubb. That's one guy I would never doubt. But
sure,
to say that to assume that he still has that juice, that ability at where he's at after the injuries, plus the age, plus the offensive line, it's really tough to assume that kind of stuff. And when you look at what Woody Marks has done, what he is as a pass catcher, I don't know if he's going to be the sole RB1 of this team, but again, the path is there for him this year. And if you're going to take a shot on a guy like Woody Marks, best ball leagues, dynasty leagues, keep him on those teams. If you're in a deep enough 12-team redraft league, you might want to stick him on there. I think especially this week, preseason week 2 is where a lot of the stuff comes in. We get really relevant data points. Preseason week 1 is cool because we're just seeing them for the first time, right? And coaches are getting a feel for these guys in live action. It's been training camp stuff, joint practices, but this is close to live action that coaches are going to see these guys. So when we see guys like Woody Marks, after what he did and the solid showing what he did, he came out. He was a second running back after Dare Agumbawale in their first preseason game, which is pretty good, right? So you see that for Woody Marks, strong performance. Let's see what he does in preseason week 2. Also, I mean, you can apply it to other guys like Arondé Gatson from the Los Angeles Chargers. Really good preseason week 1, got pretty good utilization. Let's see what they do now in preseason week 2 with these guys who had promising showings. Let's see if they level up in any kind of way.
No, that's an awesome point. And, you kind of skimmed onto the tight ends and Gadsden there. So I say we just dive right into the, where we're going next. And that's up to Seattle. And who are we focusing on in Seattle?
Well, I think we're going to focus on both the tight ends. I originally wanted this segment to focus on AJ Barner, who's the number 1 tight end right now. But then there's also Elijah Arroyo, and you can't really, if I'm going to focus on AJ Barner because of his draft value and his ADP, then I think it's only fair to do the same for Arroyo because they both have very late ADPs. I mean, AJ Barner isn't even being selected, and Arroyo he's got incredibly late ADP right now. But we can start with the AJ Barner right now. He's the number 1 inline tight end for Seattle right now, and I think because of that, he's going to be on the field a lot more than Elijah Arroyo, but he's not as athletic as Arroyo. He is kind of a shorter A-dot guy, smaller, shorter A-dot guy, pretty much. He's going to be their blocking tight end, but he does possess natural pass catching skills. I think he's going to be somebody that you'd want to get on your teams in tight end premium leagues. If you start with in best ball leagues, if you start with, one solid tight end, like a top 2, top 3 tight end, and you need just a couple guys to backfill, AJ Barner is that guy. That he's not going to be a top 12 tight end, but I think he deserves some recognition in a team that runs a lot of 2 tight end sets and is going to get some good quality. I think behind JSN, there's Cooper Kupp, who's old, and he can kind of flail he'll kind of flail as the year goes on. But who knows if he does? But I mean, it's kind of wide open between. I think it's kind of wide open between JSN, behind JSN right now. We saw per beat reporter Michael Sean Duggar. He said Barner is currently the #1 tight end, and he's looking very promising in practice. He's feeling a bit miscast as a blocking tight end coming out of Michigan. Barner continues to show he's a great athlete with soft hands and the ability to make big-time catches, like the one he had against the Minnesota Vikings to give Seattle a fourth quarter lead in Week 16 last season. I mean, he's got opportunity to build on something right now. And for that reason, I think Barner deserves some recognition in specific formats.
Sure.
Elijah Arroyo, though, I think is the main star of training camp, and he's the rookie tight end who was signed out of Miami. He has the highest upside of the two tight ends, right? He will get wide receiver utilization. He will see snaps in the slot and out wide. He's more athletic. He'll have the deeper A dot. He's got the yak ability. He's the sexier, more exciting pick of the two. I think for Arroyo, you want to stash him, and he does have the upside to produce. We just don't know to the extent of where he's going to line yet in that offense under Kubiak. Clint Kubiak actually last year, as the head coach for the Saints, was he ran 12 personnel at the seventh highest rate on the Saints last year. And I think they're going to keep doing that this year with the Seahawks, which is going to give Arroyo plenty of opportunity to be on the field as opposed to being on another team where they don't run it at a higher rate. So be sure to stash him on your teams is what I'm trying to say.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway too from this is that, and you kind of alluded to it, is just that he is going to be able to play all over the place. Barner was interesting when he came out. I thought he was good for what Seattle wanted to do at the time. I think just the other thing that's interesting, right, is like you have Kupp and you have JSN, and they're both primary slot guys, so it's going to be interesting to see. You would think a guy like Arroyo, if that wasn't the case, could get on the field in that role, kind of in that slot, play that scenario. But you're doubling down on that. And Seattle's going to have to find a way. I actually was reading about this earlier today, a way to mesh Kupp and JSN, which I think gives probably, unfortunately, in the set of these two, Barner more opportunity to be on the field. As opposed to Arroyo early, just because of similarities in play style. Now, I don't know if you agree with that, disagree with that, but it's certainly going to be interesting to me to see how Mike McDonald kind of puts this all together, because there is so much similarities in what's going on in the passing game in Seattle. So I'm not saying that I'm not excited. I am. Arroyo needs to be there. I think he can probably take that scenario that Font never could and go to the next level with it in Seattle. I mean, it's been a minute since Seattle has had a truly relevant tight end. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think it was like Carlson probably was the last decent.
I think it was Dissly, right? With Will Dissly with Russell Wilson for like a hot minute before Will Dissly tore his, I believe, second Achilles, I think.
Will Dissly, so what year was that?
That was, I think that was before COVID, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
That was before COVID.
It's been a hot minute. And obviously there's different coaching regimes, all that fun stuff, OCs. But like, I don't know, you get these teams sometimes that just never seem to be able to produce at a position. Like a New England Patriot wide receiver in the last 8 years. Again, this is not to say that it's not going to happen. It's just these two guys have an interesting setup that, do I see the upside in both of them? 100%. If it's me, I'm going with the rookie. I don't expect much from it, but to me, he's more exciting.
Absolutely. And again, it's Arroyo needs to earn reps on the field by proving that he can block, right? Because that's where, volume is king in fantasy, but you got to earn that volume by getting on the field, right? And you do that in McDonald offense by learning how to block in a run first offense. And again, I bring up Cooper Kupp and like his availability and what he can bring to the table, because I still think, we really don't know who the third option is going to be in that offense. We don't know if it's going to be Torrey Horton. It's looking like it might be Torrey Horton. We don't know if it's going to be, or if it could be split between Torrey Horton and Elijah Arroyo, right? I mean, we just don't know yet. And I think, we're kind of resting on our laurels as far as assumptions goes in the preseason based on what we think these offenses are going to be. But we need to constantly be like water when we're thinking about what these offenses could possibly be as the season goes along. And Arroyo might just blow people's minds with what he could do this year on the field. And it's been nothing but positive news on him coming out of training camp. And you know that if you subscribe to our player feed and on 32BeatWriters.
Yep. I mean, it's funny to me. Like, I was on with Warren Shop earlier and we were just going through stuff and he was like, how do you know all this? And I'm like, honestly, I just read our website. And he's like, maybe I should start reading a website that I subscribe to. And I was like, it's funny how that works. And they're really, I mean, I'm pretty sure half the information that you've probably pulled is from that. And, it certainly doesn't hurt. Yeah. So all of it. There you go. That's what I do at 5:30 every morning.
I count on it.
Yes, there you go. I mean, it makes the world a better place, I like to think.
It does. It does.
But more importantly, it allows you to see the patterns. And I think that is key to both these tight ends, is that, we always live like in the moment. And especially I feel like fantasy sometimes is so reactionary. Now, I'm a firm believer in you have to win the week. Obviously the longer fantasy is a full season, but you got to win the week. And I think a lot of people do take that approach. So it's like, oh, okay, this is hot, this is fresh. I'm on this. But if the guy hasn't done anything prior to that, and you go back and you look and you're like, everything prior to this is negative and you had one good day, then what are we doing here? And the inverse is the same. So I think this is a scenario where the camp reports do matter and they're both being reported about regularly. So keep an eye on those things. And I think you guys will be rewarded. All right. Where are we going next? Malik Washington?
Yes,
sir. This one's going to be you.
I thought you loved Malik Washington.
I like Malik Washington. Don't get me wrong. The Dolphins like we were talking about Oli Gordon in the backfield. The Dolphins are a mess, man. So maybe that's a good thing for Malik Washington.
I'm trying to actually dig for sleepers right now. I'm not trying to come over here and tell you to draft, Bashal Tootin. Like, if you don't know who Bashal Tootin is yet, okay, so let me say one thing real quick. I assume that the crowd and the audience at Beyond the Rankings, you follow beat reporters. They know who the players are right now in training camp, right? So I could tell you to draft Bashal Tootin, but that's a waste of your time and my time, right? Like, everybody's telling you to draft Bashal Tootin right now. Like, I'm trying to dig and find you guys something. I'm trying to go back to what we just talked about as not resting on your assumptions about what offenses are going to look like and what offenses are going to suck already, right? That's not that. When you want to dig for sleepers, you got to zig when everybody's zagging. And Malik Washington, I think, kind of falls in that scenario. You could paint a picture about Malik Washington leading this team in receptions this year. Hold on, bear with me for a second, okay? Malik Washington. So let's talk about what the offense was last year, right? And what happened to the offense, and what they're probably going to be this year. Again, if you look at it, right? So Jonnu Smith led that team in receiving last year, right? And it was because of the environmental factors on the team. Why? It was because Tua had to get the ball out quick. It wasn't because Jonnu Smith is better than Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. No, those guys are better than Jonnu Smith as receivers. Jonnu Smith is great too. I respect the guy. But Tua had one of the quickest times to throw last year because of poor pass protection, which means that they had to get the ball out quickly. That O-line this year is still bad. Teron Armstead and Kendall Lamb were their two best O-line last year, and they are gone. Lamb is on the Eagles. Teron Armstead, he retired. So he was their left tackle, right? Arguably the most important position on an offensive line when you're dropping back to pass. Armstead is gone, leaving Patrick Paul as a left tackle who's barely average, right? Left guard James Daniels. I'm a fan of James Daniels. I studied him when he was on Pittsburgh. I love his technique as a guard. He's got a really good anchor, but he was added, and he's coming off an Achilles injury. Their center, Aaron Brewster, is at he was solid last year as a starter. I think he's probably their most solid piece right now on the entire offensive line. Jonah Savane.
I can never pronounce it.
Jonas Savane. He was a second-round draft pick this year. He's a rookie, right? Are you guys still with me? Just stay with me. Austin Jackson is returning from a torn. Their right tackle, Austin Jackson, is returning from a torn meniscus, and he was average last year. So I mean, like, if you go to any website that has looked at offensive line preseason rankings, Miami's 28th, 29th, 30th. It's bad still in Miami. I'm scared for Tua. But let's again, and this is what granted, if Tua stays healthy, this is going to be good for Malik Washington, because Malik Washington is going to be a strong candidate to receive those short targets if Tua has to get the ball out quickly again, right? Jonnu Smith was the beneficiary of many of those quick passes that we talked about. There are 111 vacated targets that Jonnu Smith left behind. Now he's on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Washington is Miami's primary slot receiver, and he could be the beneficiary of those many vacated targets. Both of those guys occupy the same area of the field in regards to ADOT. Jonnu Smith's ADOT last year was 5.0. Washington's ADOT was 5.4. Same thing. It's the same area of the field. Washington can be that guy. And how is that? How is he going to be that guy? How is he going to get there? What? Okay, so they added Darren Waller. Out of desperation, they added Darren Waller. There was nobody. They had to bring the guy out of retirement. I loved his music. I love that song that he came out with instead of Las Vegas Stadium. Everybody was hating on it. I like that song a lot. I banged that song a lot. But Darren Waller,
to you,
dude, that's a good song. I like it, But I think Darren Waller. I think everybody can agree that if you don't know who Darren Waller is, this guy's just had nothing but injuries throughout his career. He's going to come back to play again? He hasn't even played during the preseason. He hasn't been training with the team during preseason. So if Waller's out, that's again opens that portion of the field up for Malik Washington, right? And he's going to be able to feast on those things. Also, there's Tyreek Hill. There's trade rumors with Tyreek Hill. He's coming off a wrist injury, which he had surgery on this offseason, already dealing with an oblique injury during training camp, not practicing with the team during training camp, already turbulence around him, right? So is it really too hard to fathom that Malik Washington could lead this team in receptions just as Jonnu Smith did last year, based on what all Jonnu Smith had to do was run down the field 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, turn around, catch the ball, PPR scam, right? Like, he didn't have to do it like Trey McBride and Brock Bowers did by actually running routes and going out there grinding. Jonnu Smith literally just sat down 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, caught balls. That's all he did. And also, Jonnu Smith was kind of utilized the same way that Malik Washington is utilized, especially around the goal line. Jonnu Smith was used as an H-back and put in motion behind the line of scrimmage. Malik Washington, same thing, man. Like, he's used as a motion guy all the time in that offense. So that is my case for Malik Washington being a sleeper. And no one's saying you have to draft him, but keep tabs on what we're talking about. Keep tabs on Darren Waller's health, right? Especially if Darren Waller's out, I think you need to get Malik Washington, because he's going to be a hot commodity item that only a couple people I've seen discuss this year in the fantasy space.
No, for sure. I mean, to your point, that's why people are listening, right? To keep an eye on the people, to know who to be targeting late. And that's what we're trying to bring you. And that brings us to our last guy, the quarterback. If you can read and you're watching this, you can probably figure out who it is. But it's Jalen Milroe, who, as a married into a Tennessee family, this guy, the athleticism, getting to watch him play in the SEC was definitely interesting. I am curious. I'm very curious to get your take on why this spot is Milroe and not a guy like Tyler Shuck or something like that. So, what do we got, Z?
I mean, Tyler Shuck's just not going to win you your league. And there's not a lot. I mean, there's a couple of quarterbacks that like, I'm talking about a guy that's going to win you your league, right? And I've never, ever even thought about stashing a quarterback on my bench, right? I usually do that for running backs, give it about 2 or 3 weeks, drop them, recycle that running back rotation, and keep it going. But Jalen Milroe is the only guy I'd ever consider stashing. And if you have a deep enough bench, I consider doing that, right? Because right now he's going completely undrafted, right? And deservedly so, right? He's a backup quarterback on the Seattle Seahawks. But Milroe's, his cream, what he does good, his fantasy cream is, that sounds weird, but it's
Hey, I was just gonna let you go with it. You're the one who you had to stop and bring it up and make it weird. I was like, guys,
don't make it. So what Milroe brings to the table, Milroe is all about running the ball. Milroe is going to run. He's going to run some more. You know, he was at Alabama, right? He was a starting quarterback at Alabama for his career. As a starter at Alabama over the past 2 years, Milroe rushed for 1,257 yards and 32 touchdowns in 2 years. If I could cuss, I would right now. I'd drop a bomb. But dude, 2 years he ran for 32 touchdowns. This is what the guy does. He sees the field. He also, as a passer, he sees the field relatively well. Sometimes he throws risky balls. I think in the first preseason game, there was a snap where he scanned from right to left, and he read a curl route, but didn't read the leverage of the cornerback. I think he just threw it a little bit too late in what could have been a pick six. So he's got to work on that kind of stuff. But I think he's a quality quarterback, right? And are we going to see him start this year? Maybe we see him start this year. If you think about what Sam Darnold, if you believe Sam Darnold's still a strong quarterback and won't kind of regress into who he was on the Jets, he had a good season with the Vikings, but that's because I think Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic coach. Justin Jefferson is obviously, look at the weapons, right? Jordan Ashton,
sure,
Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. Let's talk about the environment. This is going to be a run first offense, and I believe they will simplify it for Sam Darnold. But if you look at also the schedule for the Seahawks, I mean, look at their first 4 weeks. They have San Francisco at home. They're at Pitt. They have versus New Orleans, which should be a win, and then at Arizona for their first 4 weeks. So there is a reality where they go 1-3 with their only loss with their only win in the first 4 weeks being versus New Orleans at home. They could lose to San Francisco. They could lose on the road at Pitt and at Arizona in a divisional game. This is a new team. This is a new offense. This is going to be the first month of them trying to figure things out, right? You know, it's never easy for a team to do that. So you have a team that's 1-3 the first month, and you're already going to have discussions about Milroe being discussed as the starter, right? And then, you know, look at the rest of their schedule after that. They have Tampa Bay at home, at Jacksonville, versus Houston, at Washington, versus Arizona, at Los Angeles Rams. You look at that schedule, and you can see already the discussion, and you can hear the murmurings of Sam Darnold, you know, getting benched for Jalen Milroe. And again, you don't have to stash Jalen Milroe, right? But I mean, if you do, and he comes up and for some reason he starts early, then great. But keep tabs. And as soon as those discussions start with Sam Darnold, you need to stash you need to find a place for Jalen Milroe because he's going to be a league winner for you. I guarantee it. It's a run first offense, wide zone offense. There's going to be a lot of option plays for Jalen Milroe, a lot of read option plays for Jalen Milroe, a lot of passing. It might come to the detriment of guys like JSN and Cooper Kupp and the pass catching options. But I mean, as far as like the running game, it's going to thrive, and Jalen Milroe is going to be an insane running quarterback. I mean, in the preseason game last week, he had 38 rushing yards on just 3 attempts. You know, this guy gets it done on the ground. So these are names I think you don't necessarily need to draft, but just keep tabs on as far as sleepers go, right? Not Baishal Tun, who's going to get drafted. Everybody's going to be clamoring for it because everybody wants a sexy guy on their team. Everybody wants to brag about him and wear that guy as a badge of honor, badge of pride on their bench, right? These are guys you need to keep tabs on during the year. Keep these guys on your radar during the year. Don't have too high a sense of urgency, but just keep tabs on these guys as the preseason develops, especially this week, and as the season goes along.
No, I mean, I think this is a good base, and you know, it almost is like a mini series here, right? Of sleepers. And you know, one thing I will point out is, you know, Z kind of alluded to it, but you want to get on these guys before the news gets to these guys. And so when you're looking at a guy like Milroe, if Seattle does start 0-2 and you got to lose bench spot, that's when you grab them. Right. You know, because you don't want to be the guy who's grabbing them when they're 1-5. Because guess what? He's not going to be there. You know, and a lot of the times, like, you know, people miss out because they're keeping someone like my favorite. I can't believe I'm going down this path. We probably should just wrap this, but I see it every year in almost every league I play. There's always half a dozen guys that hold on to these meddling veterans that have no upside, but they're moderately consistent. Like, I'm a big Noah Brown fan this year, but is he going to win me my league?
No.
Probably not, but do I want to see Jalen Lane maybe be on the end of my bench? Yeah, it's a little bit more exciting. So, there's those scenarios too. Like, don't get lost because you think you need the security blanket all the time. You got to take some risks, and it's better to take calculated ones. And that's why, I think going through these kind of players is just awesome. And to get their names out there to the people who are, listening to this show, even better. So I'm hoping we can do this again. I'm hoping I can be more routine on your show. It's always awesome to be on.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you letting me on, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, Matt. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, man. Again, I just want to extend, thanks for having me on the team. I love being here at 32BeatWriters. It's been an absolute adrenaline rush ever since I've gotten here. Ever since I got here and essentially training camp started, and I've been just going on adrenaline and like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night and getting it done. I don't know how. But yeah, that's a wrap. I want to thank everybody for watching the show. Stay tuned with us. We're going to have some of the best insider information that a lot of people are just not going to have during the season. Please stay tuned. Please pay attention to what we're dropping out there. We're dropping articles every single week. We have an awesome fantasy team. Matt's doing interviews. Zach's doing interviews. TJ's doing awesome work with next year's college prospects. We have already a bunch of team interviews from different beat reporters from different teams. So please check all that out on YouTube, on Twitter. I am Zareh Kantzabedian. This is Matt Olson as well. And I want to say thank you all for joining me. See you next time.